someone close to you or something specific. It will vary each week, and we'll kind of come up with different challenges each Thursday. That's the plan. Unless it's a Thursday that we don't meet, then it may be adjusted. So for this Thursday, the challenge will be just for you to do something nice for someone else. It's very general. It could be you writing a note to a roommate. It could be you, paying for somebody's food behind you in a drive-through. It could be you helping someone in the grocery store. Like literally anything that you make an extra effort. It could be you complimenting something, making an extra effort to do something nice. So you guys got all weekend to do it, and we'll talk a little bit about it on Tuesday just to kind of see what you all did. I may put up a discussion board because I don't want to add any extra work on you. This is optional. You don't have to do it. But kind of my thoughts behind this is that I think in life it's easy to kind of, get focused on your goals, get focused on what you're trying to do, and you see all the problems in the world, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's just so big. Like, how can one person solve all these big problems? But I just kind of looked at my impact is that I have each of you in class each week. So for 16 weeks, if we're doing one little good thing each week, 16 weeks, over 20 people, one semester, hopefully it's a habit by then because, I don't know, it takes, 21 days to build a habit, 30 days, I don't know. So it'll be a habit hopefully by then, and then you guys will carry it on. And then as I teach more and more students, then this will become a bigger impact. So just showing that something small can, accumulate to something big. So the first challenge, and I probably will put a discussion board up just to remind you guys that it's up. And then if y'all want to kind of type in what you did, just to kind of see what kind of impact we're making on our community, then that would be good. So what do y'all think about that? Like thoughts on it as far as an idea? Yay, nay? What do you think? Okay. So that means everybody will have something to share next week, right? All these nods. Okay, good deal. So I'll put that up there, and then we'll talk about Tuesday. The next Thursday, you guys will have to come up with a challenge. So keep that in the back of your mind. What's one good thing? One thing that I do want to incorporate at some point, but next week I want y'all to choose, is that we wrote some cards for OU Medical, like the children's ward of that children's hospital. So they wrote some just encouraging little cards for them because it was a multitude of ailments that those kids have. So they just drew a card and just, wished them well or something like that, or had a link where you could write a nice letter to a healthcare worker at a nursing home or to a nursing home resident. So little stuff like that just kind of gives some ideas. One week, one of the students said that they wanted to rake leaves for their neighbors, and then that next week we had the ice storm. So it was a lot of opportunity to do more than rake leaves after that. But he came up with just doing something nice for your neighbors. So whether it was your neighbor in your dorm or your neighbor in your house, or your block or whatever, just doing something nice. So it really doesn't, or a significant other, writing a note to them, or like your mom, dad, someone important to you, an old teacher from high school. Those are just the kind of ideas that we used last semester in how to do something small. So when we come back next week, y'all have a little bit of idea what we could do. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about the leaders that you guys picked. So I want to just kind of go around the room and hear each of y'all's leaders. I want you guys to tell me who they are, what role they have, what do you think is the most influential thing that they accomplished, and then why you decided to choose them. Because I want us to kind of see in class what is the diversity of leaders that you guys choose, and what leadership looks like to you, whether it's somebody chose a teacher or someone chose a secretary of ag. Like, it could really be on various scales. So we can start here at the beginning.
So I actually just picked the secretary of agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah. One big thing I think is that he's the first female to actually serve as a secretary of agriculture. So that's
Yeah, I've heard her name come up a few times doing this for sure. She's nice. She's very nice.
So I chose somebody local to me, which is my first ag teacher. She shaped me a lot and changed my perspective on agriculture for sure. So that's what I did.
Okay, very cool. And when did you have her as your first ag?
my freshman year of high school.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
I picked someone in my hometown community that has served like as the county fair president, and he also serves as the Illinois Congress Association chairman.
He's busy. Yeah, so what do you think has been some of the most impactful things he's done in those roles?
Well, he goes to DC a lot to like advocate with ag reform. It's really awesome.
Cool, very cool.
So I did Henry A. Wallens. He was the Secretary of Ag and a Vice President, and started the food stamps program.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Yeah, it's a long standing.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay.
I chose a young lady by the name of Hallie Thomas. She founded a program when she was like 12 that was helping educate kids in urban settings about like where their food comes from and how they can grow food and things like that.
Wow. How old is she now?
I think like 22.
Very cool. So how's the program grown?
It's a huge, like you can look her up and
Yeah, what's it called?
it's called Happy.
Happy. Oh, very cool. Okay. That's really neat. Can you imagine 12 years old starting something like that? I mean, you got a job that quick. That's pretty cool. Okay.
So I chose my extension agent that worked with me through 4-H when I was growing up, and I just think she shows a lot of integrity, and she's always been a very like passionate person about her job, and her family supported me a lot through my 4-H career, and so I think she's just a good person to look up to.
Very good. Very good. It's nice to see the impact of 4-H kind of long term of seeing that pattern.
I chose Temple Grandin, scientist, for this for not only animal welfare but also activism. And I didn't know much about her until last semester in my animal science class, and it was really interesting learning a lot about her and like how she overcame everything and determination.
Yeah, I didn't know as much about her. I took a ethics class, animal ethics class in my undergrad, and obviously learned a little bit about her, but teaching this class allowed me to learn a lot more. I didn't understand how interesting she was just as a person.
I chose Dr. Mike Rossman. I did a whole bunch of speeches for FFA throughout my high school career talking about farmer suicides, and he is probably the leading leader of the whole thing. Basically, small town Iowa, had a neighbor, committed suicide. He was a farmer. And so he's a psychologist now, and he's kind of dedicated his life to like studying farmer suicides and fostering ways to like lower the numbers. And so, yeah.
That's very interesting. I had no idea about the mental health issue in the farming community until probably a couple of years ago, and then I saw, is it May that's like Mental Health Awareness Farmer Month or something? It's some kind of month that is kind of dedicated to that, or maybe not. Maybe it's just to mental health, and I was going to do something that would be more specific just in my organization with farmers, because that was something I never heard about.
It's the leading industry of the highest suicides. I mean, higher than veterans, actually, and people don't know that.
That's really, really unfortunate. Yeah, but that's the great work that he's doing. Okay?
I also chose Blaine Arthur as the Secretary of Ag.
Okay, why did you choose her?
I show livestock, and the National Western at the big show in Denver just got canceled. And so they actually moved it to Oklahoma, and all these people like put it on and put it together. And I know she was one of the ones who helped do that. So I was thankful for that.
Right, yeah, she just slid right into that role. Like, and has been moving ever since, for sure.
I also put Secretary Arthur.
She's popular.
Yeah. I've got to interact with her with some different groups I'm a part of, and livestock shows and everything, and it's really obvious that she wants to be like a forever learner with everything in agriculture and students in general in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So it's just been really cool getting to interact with her and see the passion she has for the industry.
Yeah, she's super committed. I know before I came back to OSU in this class, they had a format like a women's panel, and she, I think, participated on it. It may have been before she became secretary. I'm not really sure, but just that commitment to always come back and help the students, like I said, seems pretty authentic. Yeah.
I chose George Harrison Scholl, who's the father of hybrid corn.
and he developed it, and it was released in 1922, and they've been adopted and developed in pretty much every country in the world, so he made a really huge impact on the ag industry there. So.
Wow, that's very, I had no idea about him, did not know about him. Very interesting.
I chose Heather Buckmaster. She's the executive director for the Oklahoma Beef Council. I remember her speaking at our state FFA convention, and she's really involved with like youth organizations and stuff like that. And I think that's important, especially for something like the Oklahoma Beef Council. You have to, pass down your beliefs and stuff onto the younger generation. So I think that's a big part of leadership.
For sure, ag literacy is such a big deal. People just are becoming less and less aware of the things that make things happen.
Right.
Okay.
I chose AGLE. She's the founder of Farmher, and so her company highlights women's stories in agriculture, and she does that mainly through photography. And her main mantra is "Courage is contagious." So encouraging not just women, but everybody in agriculture to kind of follow their passions, no matter the industry standards or society standards that are out there.
That's a really what'd you say? Courage.
Courage is contagious.
Courage is good. That's really good. I like that.
Yeah, she has t-shirts.
I was gonna say it should be on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
that's
really
really.
cute, so.
That's really good. That's a good quote. Very good quote. Okay.
I actually chose John Deere just because he's the founder and manufacturer of the steel plow, and he really set the tone for how much improvement there is still left in the farming industry and stuff.
Right. Do you think he'd think it would be this big now, compared to when he started? Can you imagine? It's crazy.
I said Elmore Bathurst, and he's from Oklahoma, but he helped make Oklahoma one of the leading exporters of wheat to Mexico and Cuba, and he really worked with foreign markets to make Oklahoma kind of get on the map with some of those things. And I chose him because when I was reading, it said that he looked at companies like Ford and GM and looked at how they adapted to new problems. And so when he started seeing Oklahoma kind of lacking in some of the the world markets, he stepped up and really started pushing for that. So I thought it was cool that he looked at other successful people and kind of used their same business strategy.
Right. And that's super interesting. And we'll talk a little bit, like I mentioned Tuesday, about globalization and just kind of the connections that we have now. And that's a great example. Great example.
I also chose Blaine Arthur.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty interesting that she was asked to be on the panel, and she just thought that she was a small town farm kid and was like, "Are you sure? I don't know if this is a good idea." But just watching her climb the ladder of success and not give up on her dream, and that was pretty cool. She's also a very personable person. You can go up to her and talk about anything if you wanted to. She's going to talk back about it.
She really is. I've met her a few times, and she really is just very normal. For someone with such prestige, very down to earth and normal. Okay.
I chose Bob Funk, Express Cattle Ranch's owner-operator. He's just a straight businessman at heart, and it's just really cool to kind of see him and what he does and what he decides to kind of spend his money on. And through the Oklahoma FFA, I've seen some of the opportunity that he likes to provide for students, whether they have the opportunity to provide it for themselves or not. He just gives it to them. So.
Where do you think he gets that kind of business savviness from? Just in what you know about him.
I don't know exactly where he gets it, but it's kind of like a personality trait for him. Because when you talk to him, you just know this man's, he's seen some things, made some tough decisions, and he knows how to get around them.
Right. Very cool. Okay.
I chose Katie Nullis. She was a Nebraska State FFA officer, and she's an ag teacher now, and she's the sweetest person I know. And I've reached out to her a couple of times just for advice and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's very nice. And she's always willing to kind of give you some good feedback.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I chose my ag teacher just because he really made me step out of my comfort zone. He grew my love for FFA and showing, and just made me an all-around. He was a great mentor, still is to this day, so great family friend.
Very cool. So how many of you guys, your ag teacher played a huge role in why you decided to stick with ag in college? Will I raise a hands? That's a pretty good portion. For those of you who didn't have that, what encouraged you to kind of stay in ag or choose ag? Just quick sidebar question, because I hear that a lot about the ag teachers. Anybody who didn't raise their hand.
So I didn't always live on a farm or like in that livestock community until my mom got remarried, and so my stepdad kind of took that role and helped me and my brothers kind of learn what all that stuff was. I was really young, but I think that his impact is what kept me where I'm at today. I don't think that I would be in this industry if it wasn't for him. So.
Right. You know, it's really interesting is that, you know, when we talk about leaders, I don't think a lot of people label like their parents as leaders, but certainly in like a huge capacity, they're your leaders of your life, you know, parents, step-parents, like they really kind of help guide you and shape you, you know, if they're engaged with you, to help you think about stuff. So just kind of with thinking of everything that everyone shared, the people that they shared, the big takeaway I want you guys to see is that leadership varies. The role varies, and then how you guys see someone in a specific role as far as if they are a leader or not varies. And that's stuff that we will talk about in this class on what are the perspectives of leadership. Is it someone who has a high-ranking position? Or, you know, what is it that someone has to have for an individual to see them as a leader, and what all goes into that. So I hope this is kind of a little bit of an intro example to that, to see that leadership can be a ton of different things. It can look a ton of different ways. So with that being said, I want to hear what you define leadership as. So I just want to hear from a couple of you. What did you say the definition of leadership is? Just leadership. Okay. Let you go, Eric, and then Andy, you can go.
Someone you can look up to and strive to be like. Their passion pushes them to push others.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Lots of feel-good words in there. Hmm?
I think a leader is someone who has set a good example and gained a following because of true, honest work. So not someone who's going out seeking attention or seeking a following because of something that they want to do or something that they're like trying to do. Just someone who has worked hard for most of their life, and people look up to them for that.
Right, so someone that people just want to follow. Someone who's more of a servant leader and doesn't need all the glitz and glamour. That's one of the perspectives that we'll talk about. Okay, Maddie?
I just said having a set of core values people are willing to follow.
Yeah, yeah. Follow. Can you be a leader without someone following you? I mean, I don't know who I guess you could think you're a leader, but are you an impactful leader if no one will follow you? No one, not even one person. You're just out here marching by yourself. It's kind of hard to have that process. One more. What do you say leadership is? Oh, sorry.
So I said somebody who's actively pursuing growth and knowledge.
Yes.
Someone that never stops learning.
Right.
If you stop learning, there's going to be someone that.
For sure. For sure. I think we see that kind of in the changing of times. If you remain stagnant and don't go with those times, then it's hard for you to remain effective because you're not necessarily tapping into the interests of your audience or those who are following you. So kind of like when we talked about that there are various perspectives of leadership, in research there are various definitions of leadership. So the one that I want us to think about for class is the Northhouse definition. And Northhouse defines leadership as a process where an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. So you have a process that is happening where one person is influencing a group of other people to achieve a common goal. So some of the elements of that is that there is something happening. That's process. Something is happening. And that individual has a sense of power. If you can influence someone, that's a power, right? That's a piece of power that you have to shape their lives. What have you talked about with your ag teachers? You know, step parents, those things. And even just seeing someone who's doing something and inspiring you. So, and all you guys who've been on teams, you have a coach who's hopefully leading you and influencing the team of individuals to reach the common goal of winning. I don't know what teams out here are not trying to win. I mean, especially at an older level. I know like toddlers, they don't really think about winning, but the higher you get, you're probably thinking about winning. No one wants to go out there and lose every single night anyway. So this is the definition. You want to make sure you know it, you remember it. It will be on the exam. This is the definition that we will use in this class. So it does kind of encompass some of the things that you said, and then some of the elements that you guys put into leadership. We're going to talk a little bit at the end of class as far as, and some of kind of why you pointed out why you chose the leader you did is the characteristics, passionate, integrity, those sorts of things. We'll kind of talk a little bit about characteristics that make a strong leader at the end of class. So make sure you guys have that. And this PowerPoint is on Canvas now, so you guys will have this too. So let's pull out those articles that you guys read about a degree in agricultural leadership. So I'm going to take a few moments just to kind of hear what you guys took away from the article. What were some things, remember I said we'd talk a little bit about that. What are some things that stood out to you in the article?
In the what it is portion, I like how it's talking about like it's not just like it encompasses more than just like ag leadership. Like it said it's diverse, flexible, and is very an able leader in various settings.
Yeah.
So I think that pertains to the degree, not only the person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that even like for those of you who have been able to take multiple classes in Ag Lead, from my experience and just learning about the program, it is that diversity of perspectives you get introduced to, because in leadership roles, you got to work with a lot of different people. So you kind of have, and I think to be more effective, you kind of have to have a perspective that is open to those different processes and different ways that people think and feel motivated to do things. So absolutely. Yes.
I like how we talked about how leadership is not easy to define, but it's really made up of your gender, your background, your culture, and just like where you're from geographically. It's not really something that I think about necessarily, but after reading that, I started thinking, and I was like, wait, that really makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. It speaks to the fact that it is like a socially constructed phenomenon. That it's not just something that if I say someone's a leader, you're not necessarily going to agree with me. But based on my experience, I feel the way I feel, and yours really shaped that. I think it's constructivism that really just talks about like the way you receive things is based off of your experiences. And that really influences how you think, how you move, how you operate in all those different ways. So definitely, I think that's huge to think about and keep in mind as we go through this class, because when we cover some of these different areas, I want us to talk about those differences in perspectives. I don't want this to feel like everybody should think the same way. Like, I don't think that's a good way for society to be. I think we should have these conversations and share your experience in the background as to why you maybe perceive leadership in that way or don't think someone would be a leader if they were in that role. Okay? Maddie.
On like the third page, the very end of that sixth column, it's like a direct quote from student 82. It says, "To me, a degree in this particular field means a lifetime of personal growth and self-discovery. It is also designed for the students who desire to take what is learned in the classroom or community type setting and quickly apply it to their surrounding environment." And I just couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's something, and that's why I hope with this class, the information that you learn here is not something that will remain stagnant. It's something that you can take with you and apply, like Eric said, in those different areas. It's not just only ag leadership. It's something that you're learning specifically in an ag context, but it's something that can be applicable in different areas. I might actually even have that quote highlighted. I can't remember. But this is kind of what they define it as, is that it's the purpose of leadership education is to prepare people and organizations to be responsible together in an increasingly interdependent world. So the purpose of leadership education is to prepare people and organizations to be responsible together in an increasingly interdependent world. So what does that mean? An increasingly interdependent world. What does interdependent world mean? What does that mean?
People depending on others.
Mm-hmm.
Each other.
Yeah. So from a world perspective, what does that look like?
I guess, for example, everybody gets their food from, basically the same place. It starts on somebody's property, and not everybody is a farmer, obviously. So also, industries kind of intertwine and rely on each other and things like that.
Absolutely. That one event somewhere can affect somewhere else. I think we saw that with COVID. People were talking about COVID in China months before it became a thing here. And I think that, we talk so much in America about issues and challenges and diversity and all these things that people just aren't aware of the challenges that people go through here. But I think sometimes it's good to challenge yourself to think broader, that, we don't know about what's going on here, but do you know what's going on in all these other countries where there's challenges and oppression going on there too? Like, the world is so much bigger than the pockets that we live in. So I think that ag leadership is a really good way to open your mind to that and understand how things are connected. And I think too, living in a society with social media, like, we're way more connected now than ever. We can literally look up with the internet and see what's going on in Taiwan, and we can find information on those things, or we can talk to someone from a different country and hear about it. So those are kind of the things to consider when thinking about leadership, is that you're going to have to be equipped to work in different environments with different cultures and be aware of the impacts that happen outside of yourself. Does that make sense? Okay, why ag lead? So kind of in the article, it talks a little bit of the start of it, saying that, ag ed programs are just really looking at a way to kind of broaden and stay fresh and new and keep up with the times, like we talked about. So ag leadership provided a really good opportunity for that, to try something different that could immerse some of those skills that some of these students were needing. So also, leadership was a great way to help with 4-H and youth development support, really making sure personnel are prepared to go out there and work with these different communities and lead these chapters and all that. Then also mission driven. So if we think about the land grant mission, someone share what the land grant mission is. In general words.
Yeah, it's kind of like the triangle between university research and the people who share that, and then just everyone like us, like consumers, and everyone who needs to know what it is. And so it's just a way to get to help universities be able to conduct that research, and then have the people to share that, and then we can learn from it.
For sure. Just institutions that are designed to serve the community. And they do have that triad. They have research, extension, and just academia. So it's supposed to all work together. The research is supposed to be driven by problems and people of your target audience. So for 1862 land grants, that's looking at, the large farmer, the wheat producer, those sorts of things. You have other land grants like 1890s that are historically black institutions, and they're looking at the smaller farmer. Then you have the 1994 institutions that are looking at Native people, Native Americans, and really targeting that audience. So these universities are designed to create research that helps solve the problem of their constituents. And then extension is supposed to what? It's supposed to bring that research to the constituents in a way that's really digestible for them, that can help them grow their operations. And then the academia piece is to help educate people and help prepare them to go out into the world. So very unique institutions that are mission driven to do that. And ag leadership is a really good way to kind of help keep that wheel going, keep preparing professionals for that. Then it talks about helps develop and strengthen soft skills. That's I read an article over the break that talked about, even just in the ag ed profession with teachers, and they're saying like a lot of the teachers, they know their stuff. They know exactly how to operate in that classroom. They know the material, but the soft skills aren't always there to work with diverse populations. So ag leadership is a really good opportunity to build some of those soft skills, that personal development, the communication skills, the things that you don't check off with a certification, but make it easier to work with you and make it easier for you to work on teams. So developing those 21st century leaders, multicultural, being able to work in multicultural environments, and culture encompasses many things outside of just ethnicity and gender. It can be your religion, anything that is kind of personal to you, your orientation, all those things. And then team oriented, someone who can work on a team and get some things done. It's hard to work with difficult people. So really learning how to gel on a team. And then communications, being able to communicate with one another. So those are some of the key things that really made ag leadership a really kind of attractive program to incorporate in ag education. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. So some of the big takeaways that I thought that I think are just good quotes to kind of walk away with, especially as we start this class and you're in an ag lead class, is that one of the quotes was personal development and the ability to apply this growth throughout their college education. Again, reiterating that point that this is information that you should be able to apply outside of just your degree that you will get. It's something that hopefully will stick in the back of your mind, and you'll be able to see its application in other areas. And we'll try to have some opportunities for you guys to submit questions to me that I'll submit to current professionals, and they'll maybe do a quick little video and tell you how what you're learning right now is affecting them in the workplace now. So you can see that this isn't just, a check on your list, that hopefully is helpful. And then this is one thing I think is really, really big to take away, that I know I didn't do a great job of this when I was an undergrad at all. Reflect upon components of your degree and what to expect early to help you focus on how to get the most out of your degree. So I know some of you guys are seniors, so you're kind of at the end of the road, but hopefully you've been able to reflect during the process. But certainly for those of you who are underclassmen, really look at your degree and the different components of it and see this as just kind of a puzzle piece in line with your advisement, but just to really develop the skill sets that you need to be a better professional, be a better leader moving forward. And that's even outside of just the classes you take, but also the organizations you're a part of. So before we get into this next piece, I want you guys to take out a sheet of paper, because we've talked about ag leadership. We went through the syllabus Tuesday. We talked about ag leadership, a little bit of what the class will be about, what we'll cover, and how ag lead degrees, which essentially this is kind of part of that degree plan, how this kind of course can help you. So based off of what we talked about, we'll cover in the class, and what you hopefully read in the article, and just your own personal feelings, I want you to write down one goal that you have in this class. Like, what do you hope to get out of this class? What do you hope to learn? What do you hope to learn about yourself? Maybe if you skimmed through the book or the syllabus and saw some of the different things you will do. I want one goal, and this will help me too. Even if it's just like, I want to be a better teacher, an ag ed teacher. I want to be a better teacher, or I want to learn more about myself and my leadership, like how I can be a better leader. It can be anything like that, because I do read these, and that helps me as we go through the course, so I can make sure I reiterate some points that hopefully will help you in your future. So I'll give you a second just to do that. I'll have you guys go ahead and bring it up when you're done. You can just set it right here, just so I don't forget to grab that from you. You sit it right here. That'll work perfect.
What do you want us to do with the others?
Oh, yeah, I guess y'all could have brought it up now, but y'all can bring it up at the end of class, or you can bring it up now, whatever your heart feels.
We put our name on it?
Hmm?
We put our
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Is anybody still working or everybody brought it up? Okay, go ahead. Take your time. Take your time. What's y'all's favorite food place to eat at out here?
I come from a state where we don't have the luxury of bronze.
Oh, Brahms is good. Brahms is good.
Oliver, have you ever been to Nebraska? You go to Brunson?
I've never been to Nebraska.
Okay, well, it's pretty boring.
I just went to Nebraska, like,
It's pretty boring.
what part is that? Lincoln.
Oh. Brunson. But,
Brahms is just a good, steady burger. Like, it's always good.
they really have everything, like ice cream. They cover all the things.
Yeah.
It's like the only place my grandma would go to.
Really?
Like she'll go to Walmart and get like certain things, but like anything like milk, cheese, meat, like those at Brahms.
Okay, I always had to go to Brahms. I was going to go to Brahms last semester to get milk because the milk at 20-something was like not good. So.
Oh. I think I maybe have had Brahms milk once. I feel like, cause we have a Brahms that's like right across the street from our house, kind of. And
now it's 18 milk.
Yes, it was 18 milk.
what'd you say?
I said now Brahms milk is 18 milk.
They do what?
A2.
What's that?
The proteins are like arranged differently in the like the structure, so that like if you're lactose intolerant, you might not actually be lactose intolerant. It just might be the way that your like
Really?
body breaks down.
I'm lactose intolerant.
You should try A2 milk from Brahms.
I should, because I'm kind of giving up. Even the lactase not working for me anymore. I'm just like, I just can't.
A2.
Okay, I'm gonna try it.
And if you get sick,
I'll try it before class. We'll see if this really works. Okay, you all turned it in? Perfect. So I'm gonna have you guys kind of break off into some groups, and we're gonna talk a little bit, like I said, about the characteristics of leadership. Like, what is a desirable characteristic that you would want to see in a leader? So in your groups, you're going to take a few minutes to just kind of talk about that, and y'all are going to come up with 5 characteristics that y'all all agree on that you say a leader has to have in order to be a good leader. For me to want to follow them, they need to have this. So let's see if I can kind of break you guys off. How about, let me see. Let's say, some groups will be smaller, others, but it's not a big deal. How about each 2 rows? So you 2 rows, you talk to each other. You 2 rows, talk to each other. You 2 rows, talk to each other. And, well, you 3 rows, y'all can just kind of flip around, or 2 rows and talk to each other. So again, you come up with 5 characteristics that you feel a leader should have. A good leader. A good leader should have these 5 characteristics. I'm going to give you guys about, 5 or 7 minutes to talk about it. So you guys come up with it. You talk about why you think it's important for that leader to have it, because we're going to talk about it as a class together on why you think that characteristic is important. Okay. And why is it, what if happens if that leader doesn't have that characteristic? Is it that detrimental? So I'll let you guys talk about it for about 5 or 7 minutes. I always walk around with that thing.
I got wrong, and that's like the best house. So they'll come home my way.
I don't know if that's blasphemous.
That is horrible. Oh my god.
I don't think, because I know what you're talking about, and I've seen it. We have one in Wilmington, and they're
so good. That was always like the move, like at YouTube and everything. Oh yeah, and like because I grew up in Murfreesboro too. Yeah. And there's a cookout there.
I think there's one in Memphis.
Yeah, there's one in Jackson. There's one in Memphis. Like, there's one in Nashville. There's probably more.
Well, maybe I'll try it when I go home.
You should. It's so good. It's cheap too. Like, yeah, it's so nice. And it's like the college like essential. Like they have like the you can get a box, which is like a quesadilla, a burger, hush
the hash brownies are the non-foundation, and their milkshakes are so good.
See, I don't know. My stomach used to be made of iron back in the day. Now
No, it's not.
I'm like, some stuff, it just, I already know I'm not gonna feel so good, but it's just so, I just love a good greasy burger. When it's like in the foil and it's like smashed and the cheese is melted, I'm like, that's gonna be a good one.
That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Right, like that's gonna be a good, lots of calories and cholesterol. That's what I need.
I can't like eat like that anymore. And I think it's because I went like on so many like trips for like Holston or Stone and all that. Where it's like all that's on the road is like trash.
Yes.
It's like okay.
And the only thing open late is trash.
So it's like yeah, like I think it's just I'm only scratching, but I'm already gotten to that point where I'm like okay, my tummy wants to eat like the food I eat, like that we cook. I can't eat like this college food.
It's crazy the shift that your body goes through, like.
I think too, like since I've gotten older and now, you know, like I'm married and like my husband cooks a lot of good food and like it's a little bit healthy, you know, we try to eat healthy and all that. And you get used to eating a certain way. And so it's really hard to not eat like that.
It really is. Unless your body completely rejects it, it's like you still have that like, you know, I watched this video that talked about the science of like junk food and the cravings it makes. I'm like, that's just criminal. I was like, I know something else making me really good. It makes me feel, I'm like, I crave McDonald's. I'm like, there's nothing great about McDonald's. Like, it's nothing. Why would I want to like that?
Why would I go super much and like go out of my way to eat there?
They're sprinkling a little something in there that I don't need. That's for sure. What did you guys learn?
Communication, willing to learn, passionate, compassionate.
You better start looking. They're looking at one right now. It's been on the market for like 8 years.
Okay, and so while you're signing, this little girl about the house, the office. She talks about like puppies these are, and I don't know. They talk about these right down the street. I think they were so beautiful and so simple. Like chicken. And so these puppies are running around and they're walking, walking outside a little bit. For sure. Then we took our pictures because they were so like
And then communication, like, you have to be able to communicate well and no one can understand.
Our work is for communicators. I started out as for camera. They can't talk to you. It's bad. Those are good. We're lucky that yeah, so we got a main first lease so we could get
Like, I'm like right on the age of order.
I remain from college, so like I know about that stuff. It's really not. Like there is writing classes, but it's also like layout design, videography, photography, and that kind of stuff. It is a lot of writing, but it's not. I totally get out of college.
It's pretty and it's
It just teaches you how to write.
Yeah. Yeah,
lot of jobs, so it's not very expensive. They also are trying to have like Adobe or like
Oh, yeah, so that's just, it's been done. I'm working for a company, so like I have jobs. You know what I mean? But it's like my experience, like the connections that
My dorm room. You know, and then I was like, super up.
Maybe some trees that were
I mean, if you go out to like Panhandle area, I'll take plant cedar trees. I'm not really like plant cedar trees. You know?
That's kind of how I feel like.
So I got scholarships. If you go and you run and you get a scholarship, you're like $90 to get one. So I think the only time I ended up having to pay for was flight. And it don't really have like there and back. But I think until Czech Republic or Czech Republic for the United States currency is like nothing. So I spent, we were there for 2 weeks. Yeah, like I spent $100 for 2 weeks out of Czech Republic. Forever a learner. I'm like, she's babies, and it makes me a little nervous now. Like,
she actually had that one. She explained it to me.
well, it was like 10%.
Leadership is like living on glass house, you know, everyone can see you, communicates. Childish,
Talk about it. Okay, y'all. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I'm gonna start with this group down here. Y'all can all see this board, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna start writing down all the characteristics that you guys have chosen. So tell us when we go through each group, tell us a little bit. I can turn the music off now. I can tell us a little bit about why you chose some of the characteristics. You don't have to go through each one, but just tell us some of your kind of favorite ones, why you chose it. I'll say at least 2. Tell us why you chose 2 of the 5 that you give, but give me all 5 of them. So first group, tell me your 5.
Okay, our 5 are communication, willingness to learn.
Oh, hold on one second.
Oh, sorry.
Communication.
Willingness to learn.
Okay.
Compassionate. Motivation.
Okay.
And passion.
Passionate?
Yes.
Okay, so tell the class why you guys chose 2 of those. Whatever 2 you want.
We talked about willingness to learn, because if you're not willing to continue to learn and you're just kind of arrogant and think you know it all, then no one's really going to want to deal with that, first of all. And then motivation, because if you're not motivated to do something and you get lazy on it, then the people following you are like, well, if you don't want to do it, then why would I want to do it?
For sure. Good, those are good ones. Okay, next group. Give me your 5.
They have to be a forever learner. So
Okay, we'll just keep that one.
And then they have to be respected. They have to gain other people's respect.
Okay.
And then integrity.
Okay.
Determination. And composure.
Okay, tell us about 2 of those.
We just feel like leaders have to gain others' respect, because if you don't respect someone, then you're kind of just not going to listen to anything they say. Like, you're just like, you have to be respected.
Yeah, we also said composure, because I don't know, I mean, like, if someone's like throwing a childish fit, do you really be like, oh, that's my leader, you know? I mean, yeah, so I just feel like that's really important, especially when all eyes are on you.
For sure. Okay. What about you guys?
We also went with respectable / respected. We said vision, genuine, passionate, and driven.
Ooh, I don't know. Sorry, I'm not a spell check. I'm keep it real. Okay, Jim, what you said? Driven?
Yes.
I always want to spell it like the singer. You remember Genuine?
Yeah.
And that's not how you spell it, so forgive me. Okay, driven. What else?
And passionate.
Passionate. Okay. Okay, tell us about 2 of those.
I think with vision, like if you like follow somebody, you kind of want to know the end goal. And so if they don't have a vision, then you're kind of following the blind leading the blind. And that's not very fun. Driven, you just have to have someone who's like willing to go like all the way, wants to push themselves also and like others too.
Okay, very good. It's not blind leading the blind just because I can't spell that word, so please trust me in the class. Okay, your group.
We have integrity, honesty, confidence,
determination, professionalism, and follower.
Okay, you said integrity, honest, confidence, follower, what else?
Professionalism.
I should have remembered that one. Okay, so tell us about two of those, why you chose them.
So I'm going to talk about follower real quick. You can't be a leader if you don't know how to follow. So, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, if they don't know how to take direction, if they don't know how to be able to, yeah, if you can't listen to others and draw up what other people have to say, there's no reason to say that you can lead them either. And for professionalism, I mean, if you're not professional with the way you act, with the way you communicate with others and speak in front of people, then there's no reason for them to follow you.
Right. Very good. Okay. So how do y'all feel about this conglomerate of characteristics? How do y'all feel about them, just as a class?
I think, I mean, some of it kind of is like second nature, but a lot of it's really hard to live up to.
Like what?
I mean, just having all of these characteristics, it's just like, it's not very common when it comes to like politics or just like really strong-willed leaders.
Right. Like it would be impossible to have.
I wouldn't say impossible, I feel like it's not a priority to people anymore.
Very true.
I think like it kind of makes me think something similar to that. Like how many of the people that we look up to, like as a large group, like you know the president or someone who works in office, or I mean, like how many of them actually have those traits, and how much do we pay attention to it, or like are we just considering them a leader because we put them in that position and like we expect them to conform?
Right. Yeah, it's almost like people in leadership positions, do they even care what you as a follower want them to have as far as their characteristics? I mean, how many leaders do you think are saying, what kind of leader do you want me to be? I mean, y'all may know a few, but I think a lot on the larger scale, they're not really asking those questions or, you know, demonstrating it. And maybe sometimes people, when they're maybe identifying a leader, maybe they aren't always thinking of all those characteristics. Like you said, maybe it's they're looking at different pieces, like we talked about likable. Like, oh, I like them. Maybe they're not honest all the time, but I like them. So where that way it plays.
Like we're a lot that way with celebrities and stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like we're just like, oh, we like this person, but we don't know what they actually stand for and like who they are as a person.
Yeah, it's a fine line between it because they are those public figures, but it's like they are human beings too, so they aren't going to be perfect. But
I think sometimes like leaders, like when you look at like she was saying, like when you get higher up and on a bigger setting, I think sometimes leaders forget why they wanted to be a leader in the first place. I think once they get to some of them, once they get to a certain point, just think about what they can do to stay in office instead of sticking with the core values that they started with and what they stood for. It just becomes a power scheme.
I could go on and on about that. Like seriously, it's really kind of sad, especially in some people who are leaders, because we talked about that in the definition, right? Influence equals power, essentially. The power that comes with being a leader. And how that can really kind of warp some people's perspective on their leadership and what their role is. And I'd be very interested to meet some of these leaders on large scales and some I've encountered when they first came out of school or whatever to begin leading. They probably were a little bit different people because some people just power trip. I mean, have you ever worked somewhere? I mean, I've worked at, you know, like a PetSmart, and someone gets a little promotion and it's like, you're just a cashier yesterday. You're tripping. You're treating me completely different. So it's very interesting to see how people get a little power and it just completely changes things. Go first, and I'll come over to you, Joseph.
Oh, yeah. I was just kind of going to echo what they said, like how a lot of times I think we tie like leadership to success now, and like these are kind of like the core, when you really think about it, like the core values of a leader, like is that really what a lot of these people that we think of are in leadership positions, like is that really their role, or do we need to get more back to the heart of like servant leadership? It's kind of two different definitions of leadership.
Right. And if servant leadership is the kind of leader that you want, do you want a servant leader? Or do you want someone who's just going to take over? You know, I mean, some people have different preferences on that. Okay,
I think a lot more people have just about every characteristic you want in a leader than people think. It just depends on your outlook on what they're thinking. Because, I mean, everyone's passionate about something that just may not be the same thing that you're passionate about. So you may not think they're passionate. Everyone's genuine to somebody, it just may not be you. So everybody kind of holds these characteristics. It just depends on which light you look in it.
Yeah, and sometimes it depends on how they display it too. Because passion for someone could be bouncing off the walls, enthusiastic, but that may not be someone's personality. Some people may be a little more laid back, and they're just as passionate, but they don't show it the same way.
I kind of agree a little bit with Joseph right there, but I think ultimately it's really up to you who you follow. I think that you as a person should have enough core value to choose who your leader is. And if that's what you want in a leader, then that's what you need to choose. And sometimes we get distracted by the lights and the fame of, oh, they're in an executive position, I'm going to follow them. But do you actually know, like, do they actually carry those characteristics? Because you could be in barn A over here and hear some really bad stuff about that person, but be in barn C over here and hear some really great stuff about them. So it's really ultimately up to you about who you follow, and if that's what you're looking for in a leader, then go for it and go find that. But if you don't know what you want, then who are you really following? You're following your mind, like just the, oh, I want this, but it's not real. I'm just making it seem like it's real.
True.
I think it's interesting too because there's not very many characteristics that we came up with that are things that you necessarily learn. They're kind of things that shape who you are. Like they're more of a heart issue rather than just like professionalism. You can take a class or you can, be around other professionals and you kind of learn, how to dress, how to act, what to say, things like that. But like when it comes down to honest and your willingness to follow and your passion, those are things that really just come back to your heart. So just like they were both saying, I mean, if your core values don't really line up with somebody, like for us, those are things that we really like. But also there can be other people that don't agree with some of those heart values. Like that's just not what they're looking for.
Right. And I think it kind of brings us to that huge debate in leadership. Is leadership taught, or can you learn leadership, or are you born a leader? Which one? And I think people stand on both ends. Some people think you're just born to do it. And some people just think, no, you can learn this. Anybody can be a leader if they really put their mind to it. I think y'all bring up some really good points, and a lot of the points you're bringing up we are going to touch on class. Followers play a role in the leader's ability to be effective. And I think leaders should really pay a lot of attention to the follower. And this class gives you a lot of opportunity to not only evaluate yourself as a leader, but to evaluate how you work better with followers in your leadership role and things to take into account when you're working with them. So, very good discussion. Before we leave, what I want each group to do, though, is you narrow down your characteristics to your top one. And then you're going to tell me, and then we're going to kind of bring this over into class next week. So, real quick, you guys decide what is the top characteristic out of the 5 you chose that you feel a leader should have. Just give you a quick minute to do that.
I was going to take composure or respect and power for sure, but I want to do that.
I think if you have composure, you're going to be
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Have a group leader raise their hand when you have your characteristic you chose. And I'll go when all of you guys are up. Okay? This group. You guys decided? Okay. Let's work our way backwards this way, and you tell me the characteristic you said is the top one.
We're going with professionalism.
Okay. Okay?
We're going with their ability to be genuine
Oh, okay. I'll know how to spell it by next week.
Yeah, there's just no E after U.
What is it?
There's no E after U. The rest is correct.
Oh, okay.
U-I-N-E.
I knew I was close.
Composure.
Composure. Okay, that's a good one. And what about you guys?
Willingness to learn.
And that was a popular one. Okay, we're going to talk about those next class. I want to give you a couple quick reminders for next week. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is a good leader. What in this class do we define a good leader? What makes a good leader? Then we're going to move into chapter 1. And kind of your point, Eric, what you talked about, like, why do these leaders still lead? Have they lost their kind of sight on why they started? This talks a little bit about clarity and drift. The things that leaders go through kind of in their leadership journey. And it's going to go deeper into that when you read it. Also for chapter 1, if you do not have your book yet, I scanned chapter 1 and put it on Canvas. So chapter 1 is on Canvas, so you guys will have that available to you from the Discovering the Leader in You, the blue book. That is the first chapter that we're reading from. And then your quiz is going to be due on the 26th. So you want to make sure it's done before class, and then we'll have discussion on the chapter, so you want to make sure you've read it before class. And then we'll talk about essay 1 then. I wasn't going to talk about it today, but I think we're going to talk about it next week because you will have read chapter 1, and essay 1 has components of that. Any questions? Okay, great. Don't forget your challenge. What's the challenge? Do something tonight.